You may have heard the legends, the curses that followed those who disturbed a pharaoh's tomb, or whispers that some embalmers went mad from the work. But the truth is quieter and stranger. Tonight you'll step into that truth. The world of ancient Egypt often dazzles with gold and grandeur, but beneath the painted coffins and perfumed linen lies something far more human and more haunting. This is the story not of kings, but of those who handled their bodies, of salt and silence, of hands that never felt clean again. Forget what you've seen in films. This is not a tale of magic and monsters, but of sacred duty, long hours, and rituals, both beautiful and brutal. It's about what it truly meant to prepare a body for eternity, and what was left behind when the tomb was sealed shut. So, before we begin, take a breath. Let the sands settle. And if you're listening from a quiet room in the stillness of night, tell us in the comments, where are you tuning in from, and what time is it? And if stories like this help you drift off, feel free to subscribe and tap the bell so the next one finds you when you need it most. We're about to descend into a story buried for thousands of years. The oil is thicker today. You pour it slowly from the clay jar and it coats your fingers with a warm sheen that clings no matter how many times you wipe them on the linen. Frankincense, myrrh, cedar wood, all crushed into a dark, golden mixture that smells like fire and temples. The scent is stronger than the death that hangs in the room, but only just. You do not know his name, the man on the table. They rarely tell you. Sometimes a priest will murmur a lineage or a title, scribe, merchant, captain of guards, but to you they are always the same once the breath is gone. You tuck the jar back beside the head of the embalming slab. It rests between the canopic chest and the stack of folded linens. You are expected to keep everything in place. Order is part of the ritual. Disorder invites chaos, isfet. You have learned this already. The chamber is small. A single oil lamp flickers in the corner, barely enough to illuminate the faded murals on the plastered walls. There, in cracked ochre and faded blues, Anubis stands tall, jackal-headed and calm, over another body, another slab. The image mirrors your own shadow, or maybe you mirror it. Your hands move on their own now. You unwrap the thin papyrus sheet where the salt has already been measured, natron, pale and grainy. It absorbs moisture. It dries the body from within. You are told this is what keeps the soul from becoming lost, or bloated, or mad. The man on the table is stiff, his jaw tied shut with linen, his hands folded over his stomach like a statue. His skin is pale, tinged with the yellows of early decay. He has not yet been opened. That comes later. Your task tonight is preparation. You clean, you rinse, you brush oils into the skin, you pluck stray hairs, you check for old wounds. You whisper a small apology when your hand brushes the side of his face too roughly. He doesn't answer. The silence of the dead is like no other. It isn't just the lack of breath, it's the absence of resistance, the way the world around them slows. Stillness becomes the loudest sound in the room. Outside, the city still breathes. You know this. There are voices somewhere on the wind, drunken laughter from a nearby tavern, the clatter of a dropped jar, a woman singing to her child. But here in this chamber, time hangs in long folds like linen suspended on a drying line. You light another wick with a sliver of flint. More light helps you see the base of the skull. No blemishes, no cuts. He was healthy, perhaps, or not. It doesn't matter now. You dip your fingers again into the oil and trace the temples. You murmur a line you've memorized from your master. May your Ka pass cleanly. May your Ba remember your name. May the West receive you in peace. You do not know if he hears you, but saying it calms the room. You glance toward the canopic jars. They wait, lids carved like gods. You will open them soon. Not yet. Not until the master arrives with his knife. You are not permitted to make the cuts, only to clean what is removed. Pack it, bind it, label it with a small reed ink mark you learned to draw as a child. This was not the life you expected. Once you thought you'd be a scribe. Your father taught you letters on broken potsherds, but famine came and the priests needed hands. Now your letters are drawn on the flesh of the departed. Temporary words meant only to guide. You pause. A drop of sweat rolls down your back. You wipe your brow with the cloth wrapped around your arm. It's stained already. Oils, salt, old blood. You have 2 more bodies waiting, and the sun has not yet risen. But for now, this one is yours. This body, this task, this silence.
You step back from the slab for a moment, letting your shoulders loosen. The room feels smaller now, heavy with incense smoke and the faint scent of the oils. You've learned to breathe through your nose, slowly, shallowly, so the odors settle gently rather than invade. Your master told you once, breathe like the gods, deep but not greedy. You return to the man on the table. The cloth around his jaw is still tight, holding the mouth shut. You tug at it gently, loosening the knot just enough to let his features rest more naturally. You don't know why you do this. The soul has already left. Still, it feels wrong to leave a face twisted. You glance at his nails. You clean them with the edge of a bronze tool. Small work, but important. The gods see everything, and the judges in the Hall of Mod will know if a man's hands were unclean. You've heard stories. Souls turned back, denied entry into the field of reeds because of something forgotten, something careless. You will not be careless. Beside the slab, the linen strips are stacked like offerings, long, narrow, pale as clouds. You prepared them yourself last night, soaking them in resins and drying them over the low heat of the hearth. Each one folded with precision, each one a promise. You've come to think of the wrappings as language, not written words, but something older, a kind of sacred grammar in the folds, a silent story of protection and memory. Your fingers itch with the scent of pine resin, sticky, sharp, almost sweet. You begin with the arms, washing gently with warm water and natron. You whisper the old words again, words your master says are older than the gods. Rise clean, rest whole, return true. You've never asked what they mean. You're not sure anyone knows anymore. But you say them just the same, like smoothing the linen or measuring the jars. These things aren't questioned. They are known. Your hands move with practiced rhythm. Dab, wipe, pat dry, oil. Repeat. The light in the room begins to shift. Faint gray glimmers at the seam of the door. Dawn will come soon. With it, the master. With it, the blade. You feel the weight of it already. The curved obsidian knife he carries in a wooden sheath. You've held it once. Only once. Just to clean the handle. It felt wrong in your hand. Too quiet. Too final. You leave the abdomen untouched. That is not your place. Instead, you oil the soles of the feet, whispering prayers as you go. You've always liked this part. The feet seem the most human. Scarred, crooked, one toe missing a nail. The reminder that this person once walked, once stood under the same sun you see now rising through the high slats of the window. You hear footsteps above, the shifting of sandals on limestone. The master is coming. You adjust the lamp to full flame. You fold the cloth across the man's chest. You press your palms to your thighs to steady them. It is time. Soon, the organs will be removed. The lungs, the stomach, the intestines, the heart, if it's to be taken. If the man was rich enough, you will catch them. You will salt them. You will not flinch. This is your task. You are not the cutter. You are the keeper.
The door creaks open. You bow without looking. The master's presence always brings a hush deeper than silence, like the air itself waits. You hear the soft tap of bronze tools set onto the stone shelf, then the dull knock of the box containing the obsidian knife. He does not speak to you. He never does at this hour, not until the cut is made. The priest follows behind, humming something low and breathy. His feet are bare. His hands carry a small jar of honey and a bundle of papyrus reeds tied with red cord. You don't know if he sleeps. Some nights you hear him pacing on the roof. The master rolls up his sleeves and makes a slow circle around the slab, eyes scanning every crease and corner. You keep still. Your job is to observe, to anticipate, to reach for the right vessel before it's asked, to light the incense a moment before the priest gestures. He unwraps the knife and holds it flat in both hands, whispering the prayer of intention. The air thickens. There is no drama, no cry, no surge of drums. Just a single motion. A practiced glide beneath the ribs, through the small wound left by the temple cutter. The cavity opens. The ritual begins. Your breath fogs slightly in the stillness. You pass the master the small bronze hook. He uses it like a reed, weaving into the body gently. One by one the organs emerge, still glistening, still warm. You hold the jar of natron ready. It's heavier than it looks. The salt has been drying for months, packed into baskets and traded for perfumes. You pour it into the basin carefully. Then place the liver inside, with reverence. The priest touches your shoulder briefly, a silent approval. You begin to chant. May this life be preserved in sweetness. May this house be clean.
The chant is not for the dead. It's for the hands, the ones who carry, the ones who keep. The lungs go next, then the stomach, each placed in its own sacred vessel. Canopic jars stand at attention, lids carved with faces, hawk, jackal, baboon, and man. The 4 sons of Horus, guardians of flesh. You wipe your fingers clean between each pass. The linen cloths at your waist are now streaked dark, and your hands tremble with the cold. You do not remove the heart. The master nods once and lets it stay. Perhaps this man was not so rich after all. Or perhaps someone loved him enough to argue with the gods. When the body is empty, the priest steps forward. He scatters dried herbs inside, frankincense, cinnamon, cedar shavings, and murmurs a hymn older than writing. The smell is sharp and strange. It curls behind your eyes and sits in your chest. You close your eyes and let it settle. Then, as softly as it began, the moment ends. The priest leaves. The master sets down the blade. You are alone again. You begin the next step. You sew. The cavity must be closed, the skin stitched with flax thread and resin glue, sealed from the inside out. It takes time and precision. You hum softly to keep your rhythm. Outside, the sun has risen. The walls glow faintly golden. Somewhere, someone is grinding grain for the midday meal. A child laughs. The market bells ring twice. But in here, there is only the breath of cedar and salt, and you, and the silence.
The resin boils quietly over coals, dark and sticky, sending thin threads of smoke into the rafters. You hold your breath as you stir it with a curved iron rod, careful not to splash the bitter syrup onto your hands. The master's warning still echoes from weeks ago. Resin scars never truly heal. You've learned to time your movements with the rhythm of the body. Resin must be ready just as the linen wrappings are finished, not a moment before. Too early, and it cools to a hardened shell. Too late, and the cloth dries without binding. The corpse is now packed from within. Sand and natron, wrapped in bundles like offerings, have filled the space where breath once lived. You tie the last knot with waxed cord, tighten it with your teeth, and glance toward the master. He inspects it without comment. That's praise enough. You dip the brush into resin. It drips like blood. With long, deliberate strokes, you begin to paint the limbs. First the toes, each one separated and wrapped in its own linen cocoon. Then the fingers. Then the arms bent at gentle angles over the chest. Every inch must be sealed. No air, no decay, only preservation. You remember when the scent used to make you gag. Now it smells like safety, like a job done correctly. The linen crackles faintly as it tightens. This part takes hours, layer after layer after layer. You move in circles around the slab, your hands following patterns older than any written scroll. Over the face you lay the shroud, a fine weave of linen soaked in palm wine. It sticks briefly, then settles into the contours of the cheekbones. The man's face is gone now, but you still remember it. You always do. Outside the workshop, the sun rises higher. You hear children playing in the street, singing songs about crocodiles and cats. You used to sing them once. Now you hum different songs, quieter ones. The embalming room grows hot. The master opens a small clay vent near the ceiling to let the smoke drift out. Sunlight slices in through the crack, catching in the dust like gold powder. For a moment, it feels sacred, even beautiful. You pull the final strip of linen tight across the crown. The head is round now, perfect, faceless. The priest will paint the mask later, when the oils are ready. He says each color must be ground with a prayer. You know better to rush paint. The final step is yours, a tiny pouch, stuffed with myrrh, pine needles, and barley, is placed beneath the tongue. You tuck it in gently, like placing a secret. Some say it keeps the soul from drying. Some say it sweetens the afterlife. You don't ask, you only obey. The slab is rinsed, the tools are cleaned. The body is gone, taken to dry in a chamber of salt and stillness. It will lie there for 70 days. 70 mornings without sun, 70 nights without a voice. You wash your hands in vinegar and milk. The mixture stings, pulling the salt from her cracked skin. You do not flinch. Your shift is done. The master nods once, then turns to prepare the next. You step outside, and the light blinds you.
The light always hurts your eyes after hours in the embalming chamber. You blink into the sun, adjusting to a world that feels too loud, too alive. The air is sharp with the smell of market spices, coriander, dried onion, fish drying in the sun. Children chase each other down the alley. A goat bleats. Your hands still smell like resin and natron. You don't go far, just down to the shadow behind the wall, where you sit with a clay cup of barley water. It's warm and sour, but it washes the salt from your throat. Your body aches, but it's a good ache. The kind that tells you you've served something older than yourself. You look down at your fingernails. They're black in the creases. You gave up cleaning them weeks ago. The other apprentices told you not to bother. No one sees your hands when you work with the dead, one said with a grin. He doesn't smile anymore. Not after he dropped a resin bowl on a noble's body. He works in the stables now. The wall behind you is cool. You rest your head against it and let the noise of the street blur. For a moment, you forget the weight of the linen, the softness of flesh that is no longer warm. You only feel the earth beneath you. You only hear the distant flapping of ibis wings over the canal. Then a voice calls. It's the master's assistant. Time to return. You rise slowly. Cup abandoned. Back inside, another body waits. A woman this time. Thin. Old. The skin loose across her collarbone. Her eyes are sunken, her mouth half open, as if she was speaking when she died. The priests will say she saw the gods. You just hope she had family. There's no gold with her, no amulets, no coin for the ferryman. Just a clay scarab in one hand and a folded scrap of linen in the other. You open it. It smells like jasmine. No one says anything. You place it with the burial pouch and begin again. The knives are cleaned, the salt is measured. The linen strips soaked in myrrh and palm oil lie ready in the basin. This time, you start with the arms. The resin hisses. The silence returns. You work slowly, reverently, as if her soul still lingers. Because maybe it does.
The light in the embalming chamber dims as the day crawls forward. Oil lamps flicker on sconces embedded in the stone. You know this hour well. It's when the air thickens with heat, with silence, with the weight of things unspoken. The priests are done for the day. The scribes have left with their scrolls, but you are just beginning the binding. The linen strips are cool to the touch, soaked in cedarwood oil and spiced wine. They smell like the temple during a festival. You lift the old woman's hands, gently crossing them over her chest. The bone beneath the skin is brittle, light. You wonder what she carried in her lifetime. Water jars? Bread baskets? Children. You wrap the fingers first, one by one, as if tucking them to sleep. The others watch you work, not with judgment, just the quiet patience of those who know the rhythm. Wrap, tuck, press, breathe. It's almost musical. One of the older embalmers hums softly in the corner, a funeral tune, but slower, more like a lullaby than a dirge. Someone else lights incense, frankincense this time. It curls upward, a thin white rope weaving around the rafters. You watch it float for a moment, then return to the woman. Her face is more peaceful now, less collapsed. Your hands move without thinking. Elbows, shoulders, rib cage. You pause at the heart. There isn't one, of course. It's in a jar. But the linen must still wrap the space it once held. You press your fingers there, over nothing, and whisper softly, not words, but the shape of them. A blessing, a goodbye. Then you wrap. The final stage is always the face. Some believe it's the most sacred part. Others say it's the most dangerous, that the spirit might still linger there, watching. You've seen the eyes move before, or thought you did. You lift the jaw gently, tilt the head. You wrap the chin first, under and over, anchoring the silence. Then the forehead, across the nose. You leave the mouth for last. It's always the mouth. A final breath might still be waiting there. You bind it shut. It's done. The woman lies still, swaddled in shadow and spice. You place her name tablet near her feet, carved in black ink on a strip of papyrus. It's a poor copy, but it's something. Outside, the bells ring for evening. You close her eyes, even though they're long gone, and sit beside her for a while, your hands resting on your knees, still wrapped in the scent of oil and resin.
The room is dim now, and your body aches from stillness more than from motion. You lean against the cool stone wall and listen to the slow, rhythmic drip from the cistern outside. Even silence has a beat here. A soft knock echoes from the entryway. One of the younger assistants enters, barefoot, head bowed. In his hands, a small wooden tray. On it, a copper bowl and 2 pieces of natron. You recognize the meaning immediately. There's another body. You rise, joints cracking like dry wood. The tray is set by the basin, and the boy retreats. You wash your hands in the bowl, the water cold, metallic. Then you dry them on a linen scrap and prepare yourself. The next is a child, maybe 5 years old. Her skin is smooth, stretched taut by dehydration. Her eyes are already collapsed, her mouth slightly open. You feel a shudder run through your ribs, but say nothing. You must never speak aloud your sorrow. It lingers in the air like dust, and it interferes with the rites. You begin the incision. This one is smaller, just below the ribs. The knife is sharp and your hands practiced, but still you hesitate. It's not because you fear the work. You fear the memory. Your own sister, years ago, the same size. She wore beads around her wrist. This child has none. The liver is removed first, as always. You cradle it briefly in both hands, then lay it in a polished jar lined with resin paste. The lungs are next, the stomach, the intestines. You know their order like a prayer. They are measured by function, by meaning. The gods protect each organ, and so must you. The heart is missing again. It's becoming more common lately. Thieves, perhaps, or maybe a mistake at the moment of death. Still, the work must go on. You rinse the cavity with palm wine, then pack it gently with the mixture of myrrh, natron, and lichen. The scent rises like burnt honey. You wrap the torso with care, weaving narrow strips between the arms and ribs, every limb bound not to restrict, but to hold, to preserve shape against time's unraveling. A prayer is murmured in the background. Someone speaks it for you. You don't need to know the words. The tone is enough. When the body is done, you lay her beside the others, a small space curtained off with palm leaves. Her jar joins the others on the shelf. There are too many small jars lately. You clean your hands again, not because they're dirty, there's little left that can cling to you now, but because ritual matters. Even fatigue must be washed away. Even grief. You pause at the threshold and glance back once. The embalming table is empty now. The copper bowls are drying. The incense is down to embers. For a second, you think you hear a whisper. But it's just the wind. Or the resin cracking. Either way, you bow. And you return to wash your hands. Because soon, another will come.
Night arrives slowly, like ink seeping into fabric. You sit again in your corner beside the unlit brazier and close your eyes for a moment. In the distance, you hear the muffled songs of the living, perhaps a festival near the river, laughter, flute, clapping. But here, in the chamber of the dead, the silence returns heavier than before. Your body is weary, and your soul even more so. The smell of natron and resin clings to your nostrils. Your hands twitch in sleep even when you are still grinding, still wrapping, still cutting. Sometimes you forget your own voice. Sometimes you forget your own name. But in this space, between heat and dust, between the body and the soul, you have come to understand something more enduring than names. You know that life is a fragile thing, that the line between it and death is thin as linen, that the gods are not loud, they are quiet and they speak in rot, in salt, in time. When the last body is laid to rest, when the jars are sealed and the bandages tied, you do not celebrate. You do not weep. You simply light a small lamp and wait. Wait for the next knock. Wait for the next wait. Wait for the silence to shift again. And if you sleep, you dream not of the Nile, or of golden statues, or of pyramid tops. You dream of cotton in mouths, and hollow ribs, and oil that burns long into the night. Because you are a mummy maker, and your world is measured not in years, but in the patience of flesh turning to legend. Let us begin again, but not with your hands in the linen or the bitter smoke of cedar oil. Let us begin with a god,
Not just any god, but one who died and lived again. You've heard his name whispered beneath every embalmer's breath. Osiris, the dismembered one, the Green Lord, the first mummy. But long before he was wrapped in linen and crowned in eternity, Osiris was a king. He ruled the Black Land in peace, guiding the people of the Nile with wisdom, grain, and music. Under him, crops obeyed, justice bloomed, and the world seemed stable, like a pot balanced perfectly on fire. But as every pot boils, every piece simmers beneath the surface. And Osiris had a brother, Set. Set, with hair like fire and eyes like desert storms. Set, the god of chaos, envy, and the places where water never flows. He looked at Osiris and saw too much stillness, too much sweetness. And so Set carved a plan, not with knives, but with cleverness. He built a beautiful box, crafted from rare woods, painted in stars, inlaid with gold, and announced it as a gift. Whoever fit perfectly inside it could keep it. Each god tried, laughing as they stretched and squirmed, but none were shaped like the box. None except Osiris. He stepped in, and the lid slammed shut. Nails, pitch, chains. Silence. Set threw the box into the Nile, and it floated like a coffin downstream. Osiris was gone. Dead. But the story doesn't end there. Because there was a woman, a sister, a queen. Isis. You know her name just as well as you know the smell of resin. You have seen her in temple carvings, kneeling with wings spread wide, her tears nourishing the earth. She searched for Osiris not with soldiers, but with love. From papyrus swamp to cedar grove, she searched until the box was found beneath a tree grown twisted around it. A tree so sacred it was cut down and made into a pillar by a foreign king. She infiltrated that palace, took back the box, and hid it. But Set was watching, and when he found it again, this time he didn't just seal it. He broke it into 14 pieces, scattered them across the two lands like seeds of sorrow. And still Isis did not stop. She searched again, not for a man, but for pieces. Each fragment found with lament, each wound wrapped with tenderness. You who wrap the dead know this devotion. You who clean each curve of bone understand her grief. With her sister Nephthys and the help of Anubis, the jackal-headed guide of souls, Isis found all but one piece, all but the most sacred part. But from the pieces she had, she wove something new. A body, whole enough to breathe. With magic and moonlight, with herbs and hope, she called him back, not to rule, but to rise. For just one night, Osiris stood again, long enough for Isis to carry his heir, Horus. And then he descended, not into oblivion, but into the world beneath. Osiris did not return to life. He became something older, something steadier, the ruler of the Duat, the god of the dead, the judge of truth. In every embalming you do, his story whispers. The washing of the feet, the placement of the amulets, the sealing of the jars. They're not just rites. They are reenactments. You are not just preparing a body. You are helping someone cross into the realm where Osiris waits. Green-skinned and crowned, seated on the throne of silence. The dead are judged not for greatness, but for balance.
not by wealth, but by the feather of Ma'at. That is why you work so carefully. Because when the heart is placed on the scale, it must be lighter than truth. And because in some strange way, through the linen, through the salt, through the quiet, Osiris is reborn again, and again, and again.
You stand beside the fire pit, rubbing ash between your fingers, thinking not just of flesh, but of stories. Because here, in this long hush of ritual and smoke, every slice of the blade echoes myth. Every line drawn on the skin remembers something older. And in this moment, Osiris isn't just legend. He's a kind of map, a guide drawn in blood, gold, and stars. They say he taught men to harvest. They say he was the first to tame wild grain, to coax barley from the edge of flood-swollen earth, to teach that what falls in darkness can rise again. He was more than a king. He was the pattern. When you stretch out the dead beneath the painted ceiling of the embalming house, it is Osiris you are preparing, every time. That is why the tools are sacred. The blade that cuts the side, the opening of the body knife, it is modeled after a celestial one. The hook that draws out the brain, it is not a tool of cruelty, but of clarity. The jars, alabaster, sealed with wax, do not merely store viscera, they are shrines, each guarded by a son of Horus, born of Isis's grief. Imseti, with the human head, guards the liver. Hapi, the baboon, watches the lungs. Duamutef, the jackal, guards the stomach. Kebesenuf, the falcon, protects the intestines. They do not speak, but they are always listening. You kneel beside a linen-wrapped body. The hands are thin, the nails stained with henna still. A woman, maybe once a singer of Hathor. Her lips are gone, but her smile lingers. You tie the amulet in place, not just anywhere, but between ribs, a scarab carved from green stone. It is the heart's replacement, because when the soul is judged, the heart can betray. So you give her a second one, a truer one. The ritual begins, and you chant beneath your breath, not words of power, but memory. A song learned from your master, who learned it from his. This is how you stitch gods into linen. Across the chamber, the master embalmer, old, one eye clouded, tends the fire. He doesn't speak. He hasn't in years. But he lights incense in patterns. 4 puffs, then pause. 4 more. You follow his rhythm with your breath. In, out. This is the rhythm of the duat. The journey the soul must take. Not a straight path, not a tunnel of light. A landscape of trials, lakes of fire, gates guarded by snake-limbed deities, halls where shadows whisper your name back to you. In that place, Osiris waits in judgment, but he is not alone. The Book of the Dead, rolled and tied with red string, sits beside the woman's feet. It is not one book, it is hundreds of spells, chosen carefully, written in delicate hieroglyphs across linen or papyrus. Spell 125 is most important, the weighing of the heart. It begins, not I. I have not stolen, I have not lied, I have not slain the innocent. You know these words better than your own, because you have spoken them while stitching lips shut, because you whisper them when sleep won't come, because you wonder if one day someone will speak them for you. Osiris sits on the throne beneath the stars, flanked by 42 judges. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe, records everything.
Anubis places the heart on the golden scale. And on the other side, the feather. Ma'at's feather. The measure of truth. If the heart is heavier, if it remembers cruelty, betrayal, gluttony, injustice, then Ammit devours it. Crocodile jaws, lion haunches, hippopotamus belly, a creature of endings. And that soul will not continue. No second death, no reincarnation, just nothing. But if the scale balances, if the heart floats, light as air, then the soul passes into the field of reeds, the perfect mirror of life, crops always ripe, waters always gentle, loved ones waiting. You wonder sometimes if it's true, but when the incense curls around your face and the linen rests smooth and tight around the limbs, it almost feels like you're helping someone find it. Like maybe, just maybe, you are more than a corpse washer. You are a ferryman, and Osiris is watching. Not judging, just remembering.
You press the seal into warm wax. It hisses. The cartouche is simple, just a reed and a sun disk. A name long forgotten by the living, but now preserved, protected. Because to speak a name is to summon memory, and to seal it is to keep that memory intact, like placing a soul inside a jar. You set the seal aside, wipe your fingers on a cloth already blackened by natron dust and old oils. The body lies wrapped beside you, still, but not empty. It feels like something lingers, not just decay, awaiting. Outside the embalming shelter, the air smells of palm resin and goat dung. Life and death share the same breeze. You step out for a moment, just a moment. Your head is light from incense and silence. The street is quiet, but not dead. A donkey passes, dragging wood. A child hums beside a bucket of lotus flowers. Two women argue softly over salt. It is good sometimes to remember that the world does not pause for the dead. Only you do. Back inside, the master is drawing the ritual lines. Red ochre on linen, down the spine, across the chest, an eye at the throat, a scarab where the heart would be. They are not random marks. They are protective maps. A spell written in pigment that tells demons where not to tread. You ask him once, long ago when he still spoke, "Do the spirits see these signs?" He only smiled, then dipped his brush in ink and whispered, "They're not for the spirits, they're for the soul." You return to your workbench. There is a jar waiting. Inside, oil of cedar, thick and dark, the scent of old temples. You drizzle it into a carved basin, mixing in crushed cinnamon bark and ground myrrh. The resin binds. The warmth of the room makes it smoke faintly. This is not medicine. This is preservation. This is the scent of kings. You take the linen strips, bleached, brittle, and blessed, and soak them, one by one. Then you begin wrapping. The arms first, always the arms, crossed over the chest like Osiris in his tomb. Then the legs, then the face. As the linen tightens around the cheeks, you hum. A song your mother used to sing. Not sacred, not even proper, just a tune from the market square. But it comforts your hands, steadies the rhythm.
You wonder if Osiris heard lullabies when his sister-wife gathered him, if Isis hummed while stitching his scattered limbs together, soft and stubborn, if that's what made him rise again, not power, but love. Later, you tuck the book of breathing into the folds near the heart. This one is short, just a few lines scrawled in ink on old papyrus. Let the breath enter freely. Let the nostrils open like lotus bloom. Let the soul speak with voice unbroken. You know the words by heart. You wrote them, not because you are a scribe, but because this family couldn't afford one, so you became one. You dip your brush in soot and prayer, and you write as if Osiris himself is listening. The fire is low now. The final phase begins. You carry the body, light, wrapped, still, and place it in the coffin. Wood, not stone, no gold leaf, no paint, but still it is shaped like a person, a vessel for a journey. You tuck amulets beneath the chin, one shaped like a ladder, so the soul can climb upward, step by careful step, into the field of reeds. You place one last bundle of herbs beneath the feet, a scent offering, a reminder of what once grew. And as the lid closes, you bow your head. Osiris was once torn apart and made whole. You have done the same here. In your own small way, you have guided a soul toward the stars. Not with chance, not with miracles, but with linen, oils, and care. And in doing so, you too live again. You walk home with the scent of cedar clinging to your sleeves. It trails behind you like incense, curling through the alleys, through market squares where bakers shout over flatbread and figs. But no one notices. No one ever notices the embalmers. You are always slightly outside the world of the living. Not cursed, not blessed, just apart. A liminal thing, a shadow between prayers. You pass a small shrine tucked into a wall. Inside, a painted statue of Osiris stands. Green skin, crook and flail crossed over his chest. Eyes outlined with black that never blinks. Someone has left an offering. A fish, dried and salted. A broken necklace, carefully placed. A coin that has been pressed so often it's lost its face. You stop and bow. Not because it's required, but because it feels right. Because you've seen too many bodies to take divinity lightly. Osiris was not born a god, not truly. He was a king, a good one, the kind that made grain grow and the river flow sweet. And that was enough for someone to envy him. His brother, Set, was not a monster, just bitter, ignored, a storm forming in silence. So he cut Osiris into pieces, 13, they say. Scattered across the land like fallen stars, buried in fields, tossed into rivers, hidden in walls. But Isis, sister, wife, mother of all grief, refused to let him vanish. She became a wind, a hawk, a woman with bare feet and bleeding hands, who searched the Nile from delta to rock, gathering her husband from the dirt and reeds, one part at a time. Even when they told her the 13th piece was lost, swallowed by a crocodile or the Nile itself, she carved a new one from gold,
because love remembers what flesh forgets. The priests say that when she finished, she breathed life into him with her wings. She did not cry. She sang. And Osiris opened his eyes, not to rule again, but to wait. He became the Lord of the Afterlife, the green god who listens at every coffin, who weighs every heart, who stands at the threshold and asks not for gold, but for truth. You arrive home, a small clay house near the wall. A goat bleats from the rooftop. Your wife has left lentils simmering in the hearth pot. Your child is asleep, feet tucked beneath a linen scrap printed with blue lotuses. And for a moment, you are not a vessel of holy duties. You are just a man, hungry, tired, soft around the shoulders. You remove your work robe. You wash your hands in silence. You let the cedar oil drift down the drain like smoke returning to heaven. Later that night, when the house is quiet, you wake again. Not from a noise, from memory. From the feeling of linen tightening over a face. From the weight of the book of breathing pressed against a rib cage. You step outside. The stars are out, thick and unmoving, sharp as etched obsidian. They say Osiris lives there now, not far, not above, but through the stars, a path for the dead who are remembered. You look at your hands. There is resin beneath your fingernails, a smear of ochre across your palm. You wipe it on your tunic, but the mark remains. Some things do not wash away. Some things are meant to stay. And that's all right, because tomorrow another body will arrive, another soul will need guiding, and you will be ready, not as a priest, not as a god, but as one who remembers.
The morning sun climbs slow over the horizon, casting amber light across the low walls of the necropolis. You've returned early, before the sand warms, before the jackals retreat. The linen-bound body from yesterday lies still within the small chapel space, awaiting final rites before interment. A priest stands in the corner, humming beneath his breath. His robes are crisp, dyed with indigo, and his eyelids are traced with thick coal. He smells of cinnamon and vinegar. He doesn't acknowledge you. He rarely does. But you recognize the tune. It's a passage from the Lamentations of Isis. I seek you through wind, through water, through flame. That's how it begins. A song of grief and determination, of divine search and painful remembering. It is said that Isis wept at every place she found a piece of Osiris, and that the land grew fertile where her tears fell. You wonder if that's why papyrus blooms near burial sites. You unpack your kit without speaking. The tools are familiar: bronze hook, linen swabs, ink brush, wax seals. But today, the tool is your voice. You will read. The priest gestures you forward. You kneel beside the coffin and unroll the scroll. It's a fragment, only a portion of the opening of the mouth ritual. The family couldn't afford more. But it is enough. You dip the reed pen into ink and press the words into clay and air, reciting softly. May your voice return to you. May your limbs awaken. May you walk upright through the hall of judgment. The priest echoes, a breath behind you, not louder, just parallel. Together, you conjure a path. There's an instrument for the mouth ritual, a ceremonial adze, shaped like the tool once used to open jars of wine or oil.
Symbolic, yes, but also a real gesture. Opening. Inviting speech. Permission to speak one's name before the gods. You press it gently to the lips of the wrapped body, where a faint indentation hints at the face beneath. Osiris. N. You pause, then whisper the name. It's not Osiris, of course, but the formula always says Osiris first. Every dead man becomes Osiris in the end. Every woman, Isis. As the rite ends, you place the small scarab stone into the wrappings above the heart. It is carved with a phrase so common you barely see it anymore. Do not speak against me. It is not a threat, it is a hope. That when the heart is weighed beside the feather of Ma'at, truth, balance, it will not betray the soul. That it will not shout, "He lied," "He took," "He hurt." It will be quiet. Or it will lie. Because even the dead fear judgment. You tie the final knot in the bindings. The body is ready. The family stands outside, nervous, blinking in the sunlight, hands full of lotuses and small jars. One of them, a boy no older than 10, stares at you. Not with fear, with something like confusion, as if trying to understand why the man who touches the dead looks so normal. You nod, gently. He looks away. There is dignity in being unseen, but there is a deeper dignity in being remembered by even one child. The procession begins slowly. You walk behind the coffin, carrying the incense burner. It swings in your hand, trailing bitter smoke. The path to the tomb is carved into the hillside, not royal, not elaborate, but good stone, dry air, a shelf for the offerings, room for the soul to rest. You pass 2 donkeys loaded with pottery, a group of laughing workers returning from quarry. None stop, none look. They've seen this before, too many times. But to you, it never feels the same. Each name carried forward is a thread woven back into the world. As the body is placed inside the tomb, the priest recites, "Rise in peace, son of Nut. Rise in glory, limb of the sky." You do not speak. You simply touch the lintel with your palm. A farewell, not goodbye, a release. As the family files out, the youngest daughter leaves a small reed mat and a jar of honey by the wall. She does not cry, but she mouths a word. You know it. You've said it too. Shine. Not rest. Shine. Because to die is not to vanish. It is to change.
That evening, you return to the embalming shelter alone. The priest has gone. The scroll is rolled. The tools have been cleaned. But something lingers in the air. Something deeper than smoke or sweat or spice. It's the story. The Osiris and Isis. You've heard it since you were a child, but now, kneeling on the earth floor, you try to see it, not as a myth, as something closer. Something that explains why you wake each morning to wrap what was once living and send it beyond the wall of breath. You begin to whisper. Not a spell, just the story, like a bedtime tale told to the sand. There was once a king, Osiris. He ruled with peace and wisdom, until his brother Set grew jealous. They say Set tricked him into a box, sealed it, and cast him into the Nile, a coffin, a prison, a grave. You trace a shape in the dirt, a rectangle, a tomb, a doorway. But Isis, his wife, his sister, did not accept it. She searched the world for him, piece by piece. There are days you wonder, how many times must we be torn apart before someone searches for us? Isis did not find him whole. She found fragments, a limb here, a rib there, a broken crown washed up near a shore. She gathered them in silence, wrapping each in linen. She was the first embalmer, not for preservation, but for love. And still, one piece was missing, the phallus, eaten by fish. The priests shy away from this part, but you do not. You understand. Not everything returns. Some parts must be reborn from memory. They say Isis crafted a new piece from gold, that she joined the body with prayer and breath, that she flattered her wings and became a bird and hovered above him, and that in that moment Osiris stirred again, not fully, not for the world, but enough to plant the seed of life, enough to create Horus, the child, the avenger, the son reborn. You stare at the coals in the brazier and imagine wings rustling over your shoulders. If grief could build a body, if memory could spark the gods. You sit in the half-light and realize something. This isn't just a story, it's the code, the blueprint for every ritual you perform. Not magic, pattern, repetition, the wrapping, the binding, the silence. You are Isis, even if you are not a mother, even if your hands are coarse and your thoughts wander. Each corpse is a puzzle. Each name is a song. Each ceremony an echo. And all of it, if done rightly, leads to renewal, not resurrection, continuance. You rise and stretch your legs. The stars have begun to bloom. Outside, the wind kicks dust across the yard, and the palm fronds rattle like ribs. Somewhere an ibis cries. You step into the dark and raise your hands. Not in prayer, in practice. You mimic the shape of wings. You try to remember the spell. Come forth with strength, return with breath. Let no shadow keep you. It's not perfect, but neither was Osiris. Wholeness is not required for divinity, only intention. You return inside and close the shutters. There's still one more task. The next body has arrived, a woman, wrapped partially, her fingers bound with reed cords. She died during childbirth. You know this from the marks, the way the stomach was pressed, the missing blood. You do not flinch. You kneel and gently begin to unwrap the cords. You whisper a name, though you haven't been told hers. You whisper Isis and begin again. Because the mother goddess is not just a myth. She is every woman who wept and waited and stitched the world back together with hope. In that moment, you feel something shift. Not a breeze, not a sound, but a silence that acknowledges you. A silence that says, yes, continue. And so you do, not with grandeur, not with certainty, but with hands that remember and a heart that accepts. Because embalming is not about death. It is about love performed quietly when no one looks. It is about telling the soul with every wrap and knot, you mattered. You still do.
You spend the next hour in practiced silence. It's not the quiet of fear or even reverence. It's the quiet of rhythm, of linen folded just so, of resin applied in thin golden threads, of fingers brushing sand from an eyelid that will never open again, but must look perfect for the gods. There's something holy in that kind of silence, a silence you now understand Isis must have known, that Osiris must have felt wrapped around him. They say Osiris didn't return to the world of the living. He became something else. Lord of the Duat, the underworld. A king still, but of silence and judgment, not revenge, not glory, only balance. You think of this often as you prepare the dead, not just their bodies, but their stories, because the weighing of the heart isn't just for the afterlife. It starts here with you. You see the tattoos left behind, the amulets clutched, the scars and the stitching, each one a word in their final sentence, each one a weight on the cosmic scale. You place a scarab over the heart, not just because it's tradition, because it speaks. It whispers, "Do not speak against me." That's what the book says. Do not speak against me on this day. The heart is treacherous. It remembers everything. The smallest betrayals, the quiet kindnesses, the moments no one else saw. That's why it must be silenced. Not destroyed, only balanced. You place the linen carefully, as if laying down a final thought. Then you tie the knot Isis invented, one loop, one crossing, one breath. Outside, you hear a drumbeat, faint. Then a voice, a chant. The priests have begun their procession. They walk from the temple with palm branches and incense, calling for the return of the soul. You are not with them, but your hands echo the same purpose. You pack the nostrils with resin and spice. You fill the hallowed belly with linen soaked in sacred oil. You seal the wound with beeswax and soot. And when it is finished, you rest your palms on the chest and breathe slowly. You say nothing. Words are not needed now, only presence. They say Osiris avenged his father, that he battled Set in the sky as a falcon of gold, that his eye was torn and then healed, becoming the Wedjot, symbol of wholeness restored. You look at the small amulet beside your tools, the Eye of Horus. You've worn it since your first training, but tonight it feels different. Not a charm, a reminder that wounds can become wisdom, that broken things can still protect. You wrap the amulet into the bandages, pressing it near the throat of the woman you've tended. She will not speak, but she will be heard. The night deepens. You light a small flame and hold it close to the final linen wraps. They seal gently with warmth. You murmur a phrase, half spell, half farewell. Then you lift the body with care, sliding it onto the wooden stretcher. Tomorrow she will be placed in the tomb. Tonight, she rests in shadow and scent. You clean the tools. You wash your hands in vinegar and natron. The air bites your knuckles and the salt stings the cuts. But you do not wince. You are used to this. Pain, like memory, lives in layers. Before leaving, you take one last look, not at the body, at the altar. The oil lamps flicker. The air curls with frankincense, and on the far wall someone long ago carved the image of Osiris, reclining, crowned, calm. You stare at it, and in your mind you whisper, "I see you." It's not worship, it's recognition. You know what it is to be taken apart, to be misunderstood, to be pieced back together only by those who love you without condition. and you know what it is to rise again, quietly, in someone else's care. You step outside. The stars are crisp and silver. The Nile hums somewhere in the distance. And in the stillness, you wonder, what would Osiris think now? Not of the afterlife, of you. Would he see the work done here, the patience, the small kindnesses? Would he say it was enough? You pull your shawl tighter and close the door behind you. You don't need his answer now. Not tonight. The story is enough, and tomorrow you will tell it again, with salt, with linen, with care.
The walk back to your quarters is slow, not because you're tired, though you are, but because this path, like so much else in your life, is sacred. You pass the outer wall where herbs hang to dry, their silhouettes trembling in the moonlight. Papyrus leaves rustle in the night wind, brushing your elbow as you turn the corner. The ground is warm from the day's sun, and your feet remember the path even in the dark. This isn't just a return. It's a descent, a kind of ritual in itself. Inside, your room is no more than a nook. Reeds for bedding, a bowl of water, a carved figure of Anubis above the lintel, its snout chipped, one eye rubbed smooth from touch. You nod to it like an old friend, and pour a bit of oil into the tiny lamp by your mat. It catches flame with a soft sigh. You sit, unwrap your scarf, flex your hands. They are still tinged with resin and spice. You could wash them again, but you don't, because some days it's good to remember what you've done, even if no one else ever will. You pick up your journal, not a grand scroll, just a few reused scraps of papyrus tied with string. On them are sketches of the dead, of tools, of symbols you still struggle to understand. There's one drawing of Osiris, or at least your version. He's not majestic here. He looks tired, kind, worn down in a way only those who've returned from something unspeakable can be. You add a few strokes to his headdress and then pause. Not every record needs words. Sometimes the silence says enough. As the oil burns lower, you lie down. Your bones ache, not from pain, but from patience, the kind of ache that comes from bending over sacred work hour after hour in service of something bigger than yourself. You stare at the roof beams overhead and let your breath slow. You think of the story again, of Osiris, not his triumph, not even his death, but the in-between, the time in pieces, the waiting, the trust that someone somewhere would find him and begin to rebuild. That, you realize, is the holiest part, not the rising, not the judgment, the care, the quiet love that stitches things back together. That's the part no one sings songs about, but maybe they should. Because you are not a god, you are not a priest, you are not even a master embalmer. You are a pair of steady hands in the night, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what keeps the world turning in its soft, silent revolutions. Your eyes begin to close. The incense has long since faded. The wind outside sounds like breathing. And somewhere in the deeper chambers of the house of the dead, the next body awaits. But not yet, not now. For now you rest. You, the one who tends the forgotten, the one who remembers the names no one speaks, the one who understands what it means to fall apart and be made whole again, if only for a moment. You close your eyes. You do not dream of gold or gods, only linen and salt and the promise of silence kept.
The stillness of the workshop feels different tonight. Not silent, never silent, but deeper, as though something sacred hangs in the air. Outside, the desert wind moves through the date palms in a dry, whispering hush. Inside, the flicker of oil lamps reflects in brass bowls and shadowed corners, making the tools on the shelf seem to breathe. You're in the heart of the embalming house again, but this time not as laborer. Tonight, you measure. Tonight, you mix. You are bent over a series of clay jars, each one sealed with linen and marked in faded ink. Juniper, cassia, frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, cedarwood. Their smells blur together until they burn your nose with sweetness. You unwrap them one by one, careful not to let any of the contents fall onto the floor. This is not just oil, this is memory. These are perfumes for eternity. The process is older than the kingdom, passed down from priest to apprentice, from temple to village, like a spell whispered over generations. You do not write it down. You wouldn't dare. Instead, you remember by touch, by scent, by sound. The cedar oil is thick and golden. The frankincense paste crumbles like sun-dried honeycomb. The cassia burns a little when it touches your skin. You line the bowls in order, tracing the rim of each with your fingertip like a priest might circle a shrine. In the center of the table is the natron. White, dry, hungry. You dip your hand into the basin and let it run through your fingers. It feels like cold salt and hot dust and bones that have forgotten the taste of water. You know its taste too well. Bitter, sharp, unforgiving, but essential. Without it, the body would bloat, rot, sink back into the earth. With it, the body waits, preserved, paused, in between. There's no ceremony here, not in the way outsiders think. No chanting, no grand robes, no marble altars. Just stone walls, jars of oil, the occasional rat that scurries near the back shelves before thinking better of it, and you, a human being, caught between the practical and the divine, the science and the soul. You begin to mix. A few drops of cedar oil with a pinch of powdered resin. Juniper stirred slowly into melted beeswax. You light a small coal disc and fan it until the resin begins to release smoke, gray, warm, and slightly bitter. The smell reminds you of your first day here, the nausea, the way your master clapped your back when you didn't faint, the pride you felt when you cleaned a bone without breaking it, the shame when you cracked the second. Your fingers move automatically now. This paste for the chest cavity, that one for the mouth. A little cinnamon near the feet, symbolic, they say, for walking in the world of the dead. And for the eyes, always something fragrant. You pause at the myrrh. It's your favorite. Heavy, red-brown, like sap from a sacred wound. You rub a little between your palms and breathe in deep. It smells like the end of things, and like the beginning. The embalmers in older cities use hundreds of ingredients, imported oils from far-off lands, flower essences gathered by moonlight. You, out here, do your best with what you have. But that's enough. Because it's not the number of ingredients, it's the care with which you prepare them. And when the gods look upon your work, they don't see a list. They see your hands, your breath slow and steady, your intention. And that might just be enough.
The embalmer's storeroom is cooler than the embalming floor.
Here, stone jars sit in orderly rows, stacked with powders that glitter like crushed limestone, and cloths folded so precisely you'd think they were royal linens. The flicker of the lamplight throws long shadows on the shelves. You can smell dried lotus, ash, and something else, old parchment maybe, or bone. You're here to gather the resin. You walk carefully, counting the jars as you go. One misstep, one broken seal, and the whole mixture might be ruined. This room doesn't tolerate arrogance. You find the sycamore gum near the bottom. Sticky and dark, it clings to the inside of its container like tar. You scoop a little out with a bronze spoon. It moves like honey, but smells like old roots. You stir it into the mixture already warming over a tiny brazier back in the workshop. The oils hiss. That's a good sign. It means the formula is accepting the resin. It means you're not off. Not yet. There's no recipe, no scroll to follow. Only what your master once whispered. Let the dead breathe through scent. So you test each batch with your own nose. Some are sharp, some so subtle you doubt they're there. One blend smells too much like vinegar. You throw it away. The gods, you think, can smell things you can't. Your fingers are coated now, golden and slick. You wipe them on a strip of linen that's already stiff with use. Your hands bear the color of your work, a pale yellow stain that will not wash away. Under your nails, flecks of natron and myrrh. The cracks on your knuckles, lined with cedar ash. No perfume can hide that. You go to the shelves again, this time for the sacred salt. A jar sealed with beeswax and string. You crack it open. Inside, the natron is finer than sand, whiter than the desert sun. It almost hums when you pour it into a shallow bowl. Natron is not just for drying the flesh. It is for drawing the spirit back towards stillness. It is both absence and preparation, a bridge between the worlds. You think of what this salt has touched: tongues and toes, ribs and cheeks, priests, scribes, potters and bakers, even the rich, even children. Everyone dries the same. That is the rule. No perfume or title saves you from it. You lay out the linen next. Not just for wrapping, for binding, for shaping the human form into something the gods will recognize again. Some strips are thin, used for the hands, the face. Some are broad, for the torso, the legs. You heat them slightly over the brazier. It helps them stretch. It helps them remember the shape they are meant to hold. Outside, you hear the whisper of a prayer. It floats through the workshop's small window. A family is waiting. They cannot see what you do here fully, but they believe it matters. And so you continue. Carefully, with reverence, with one eye on the oils, and one on the fire.
The next task is one of the most delicate. The mixture of resins, oils, and crushed herbs must be painted onto the body. Not with brushes, but with your fingers. Slow, deliberate strokes from foot to crown. You reach for the balm, dark, warm, thick as blood. It smells like pine and something deeper, something old. You dip your fingers into the bowl and feel the pulse of heat in the resin. Not fire hot, but lifelike. Almost like flesh. You begin at the feet. That's the custom. You whisper as you work. Not a prayer, but just rhythm. Words with no meaning except the comfort of movement. You rub the balm across the skin, already browned and stiff from the matron. Over the ankles, across the knees, into the hollows where life once curled. Each motion presses scent into silence.
You can feel the skin shift slightly under your touch, fragile as baked papyrus. The chest is hardest. You always pause there, not because of grief, you're used to the dead, but because of the empty space. Once, the heart lived there. Now it rests in a canopic jar sealed with a falcon-headed lid. You rub the balm in wide circles, clockwise, always clockwise. Your master said it mimics the sun's path, which calls the soul toward rebirth. Whether it's true doesn't matter. The dead deserve the illusion. You pause again, not for superstition, but for a breath. You've been holding yours too long. You lean back and wipe your brow on your forearm, smearing resin across your skin. No one teaches you that embalming makes you smell like the dead. No one tells you that the smell follows you home. Your wife sleeps facing the wall now. Your children have stopped asking what you do. You move to the hands next. Gnarled fingers, nails stained with ochre. You press balm into the joints, one by one, easing them into the position they will hold for eternity. Hands once used to hold a child, or a tool, or a coin, now wrapped not in purpose, but in linen. The face is last, always last. You dip your fingers in a smaller pot, this one with the purest oil. Frankincense, maybe, or lotus root. Your master used to say that the gods know a soul by its face, even after death. So you paint the brows carefully. You outline the lips. You brush a line from the corner of each eye to the ear. You are not decorating. You are remembering. Outside, a donkey brays. The wind carries a bit of ash through the window. It settles on your arm. You don't brush it off. Ash is part of this place, just like salt, just like smoke, just like you. You are not above the dead, only earlier. You begin the wrapping, but slowly. That is its own ritual, and one that takes a different rhythm entirely. Your arms ache, your knees pop when you move, but the body is ready. Cleaned, oiled, prepared. You press your palms together in thanks, not to the gods, but to the work, because work is the only thing that doesn't decay.
The linen strips are warm from the brazier. That makes them more forgiving, easier to mold around stiffened limbs. You lift the first band and let it trail between your fingers. It's coarse, handmade, and carries a faint scent of sun and dust. Somewhere, a woman spun this from flax beside the Nile. She doesn't know where it ended up. Or maybe she does. You start with the feet, not because the feet are sacred, but because the work demands an order. Everything must have order, even death. You wrap each toe individually, not for function, for symbolism. Each digit was once used to walk through the world. Each deserves memory. As you twist the band around the ankle, you think of all the steps this person once took, across markets, over threshing floors, up temple steps, maybe down into secret places best left unnamed. Now the feet will never move again, but they will be remembered as whole. You hum again as you work. It's a habit, a lullaby for the dead. It keeps your fingers steady and your breath from catching. Your master used to tell you the old songs kept the evil spirits away. You don't believe that. But silence, you've learned, invites them closer. So you fill the space with voice, with movement, with pattern. Wrap, press. Wrap, fold, press. The music of preservation.
The legs are easier, broad strips now, soaked in oil and laid down like layers of bark. You tuck amulets in as you go, a tiny scarab, a shard of turquoise, a folded papyrus prayer. Each one has a reason, each one a wish whispered by the family. You don't ask what they mean, you just place them gently. Not all magic needs to be understood. The torso takes time. You have to bind the ribs just right. Too tight, and the linen cracks when dry. Too loose, and the body collapses inward. You loop the strips in wide crosses, over the chest, under the arms, across the hips. The resin makes them tacky. They stick and hold, sealing scent and shape. You work fast, but never rushed. The bandages remember your rhythm. Then the arms. You place them carefully across the chest, right over left. That's the old way, the priest's way. Others might want something different, at the side, at peace, or reaching. But this one feels like a guardian, so you wrap accordingly. Wrist to shoulder, elbow to chest. Every joint padded with linen knots, every finger wrapped like a small private scroll. And then the neck. The neck must support eternity. You tie a knot beneath the jaw, not to gag, to hold the mouth shut. The living do not want their dead to speak. They say it's superstition, but you've seen the way lips part after a few days, and you've seen families scream when they do. So you tie the knot and whisper a comfort. Not for the dead, for yourself. Last comes the face. You pause before beginning. Always this is the hardest part. You know that when you're done, no one will see this face again. You're the last person it will ever face. So you wrap slow. Around the forehead, the eyes, the cheeks. You trace the nose carefully, giving it breath it can no longer take. Then across the lips. The mouth closes forever.
Now comes the resin. It bubbles low in the copper pot, dark, sticky, bittersweet with frankincense and pine. You dip the brush. The heat rises up your wrist, curling your fingers slightly as you work. The first stroke runs along the bandaged chest, darkening the linen to a golden brown. Then another across the arms. Resin doesn't just seal, it blesses. It binds the spirit to the body in scent, in memory, in permanence. The smell is heavy now. Burned herbs, boiled oils, smoke from the brazier mixing with crushed myrrh and cedar. You cough. You always do, even after all these years. But there's a secret pleasure in this scent, a strange comfort. It's the smell of sacred things, of something complete. You paint resin along the legs, the forehead, even inside the ears, just enough to fill them without cracking the delicate tissues. Everything must be preserved, even silence. Beside you, the funerary mask rests on a folded cloth. Its gold leaf over wood, with inlaid glass eyes and lapis lazuli in the brows. Not real lapis, dyed stone likely, but beautiful nonetheless. The family could not afford the full cartouche, just the name and the title, Beloved of Ra. You whisper it aloud to test the weight. Beloved of Ra. Somehow it fits. The work today has been calm, the oils cooperative, the hands steady. Perhaps Ra smiles today. You heat the glue. It's a blend of beeswax, pine gum, and gum arabic, a sacred recipe. You don't measure, it's by scent and texture alone. You press it gently behind the mask, careful not to smear the gold. Then you lower it over the wrapped face. It aligns perfectly, eyes over eyes, nose to nose. The transformation is complete. They are no longer the person who entered the room. They are a vessel for eternity. You place the final charms, a heart scarab near the chest, a wadjet eye over the forehead, and the Shabti dolls, tiny figures meant to serve in the afterlife, are tucked between the folds like attendants waiting in the shadows. Each doll carries a tool, a hoe, a basket, a staff. They will do the work so the dead do not have to. You envy that sometimes, to rest forever while others toil in your name. A strange kind of power. The priest returns. His footsteps are always soft. He checks the bindings, murmurs a hymn, and nods. It is time for the rite of closing. You step back and fold your hands. He recites from the scroll, his voice low and gravelly like the bottom of the Nile. The words echo off the stone walls. Something about rising again, about being seen by Osiris, about fields of reeds and endless harvests. You've heard it all before, and yet it still makes your chest tighten. When the rite is done, you help lift the body. It is heavier now, not just with linen and resin, but with meaning, with care. You lower it into the coffin, a simple one this time, carved with painted stars on the inside lid. The stars are upside down, facing the occupant, so they may never forget the sky. You close the lid, a clip of wood, then stillness, then breath, your own rasping in the silence. The brazier burns low, your hands are sticky with resin, your robe smells of natron and vinegar. You sit for a moment, let the work settle in your bones. The body will leave tomorrow to the tombs at Saqqara or Thebes or somewhere in between, but for now it lies here, still, quiet, wrapped not just in linen, but in time, and your breath, and the last song you hummed.
There's a shelf in the corner of the room, barely more than a slab of stone set into the wall. It holds the oldest things, clay jars sealed with wax, linen-wrapped bundles, bowls with hieratic scrawls long faded from light. These are your master's recipes, or his master's, or theirs. No one knows who first wrote them. You reach for one today, the blue-dyed bundle with the knot of fishbone thread. Inside, a packet of powdered galbanum and a prayer scratched on a palm leaf, folded 3 times. You've never opened it fully, only enough to take what you need. Some mixtures, they say, lose their power if looked at too long. You crush the galbanum in a small mortar, slow, firm circles with the pestle. It smells like honeyed rot. Then you add the oils, cedar, turpentine, castor, a bit of charred mandrake root, just a dusting. You pour the mixture into a small ceramic vial shaped like a bird. The beak acts as a spout. This one's for the final sealing, an oil that keeps pests away and coats the linen like a second skin. You drizzle it lightly along the joints of the body. It seeps in like blood returning to bone. Now for the linen scrolls. You take thin strips of papyrus soaked in resin and wrap them around the fingers, each one a verse, each digit bound with a separate line from the book of breathing. You whisper as you go, but not the words on the scroll, your own words. Soft thanks, small requests, a prayer for your own mother maybe. It's hard to remember what death should sound like after so many years, but you remember the silence afterward. That's what lasts. The dog barks outside. It's a warning, not fear. Someone's approaching the workshop. You wipe your hands on the hem of your robe and step into the light. A family stands at the threshold. 3 siblings and a little boy with a shaved head and kohl around his eyes. They carry a body on a mat of reeds. Old man, thin, wrapped already, but hastily. Not your work. You glance at the priest. He nods. More death, more time, more salt. You lead them to the outer room and begin the questions. Name, date, cause. They speak softly. The boy says nothing. You do not ask if he understands. He will soon enough. Back in the embalming room, you reset the tools. The copper knife, the oil ladle, the linen box. Each tool washed in wine and rinsed in water drawn before sunrise, when the gods are most awake. There is ritual in this. Not for the gods, but for your hands. Without it, they would not stop shaking. You scrub the resin bowl, letting the oily water run through the floor cracks. The smell of the last body still lingers. Cloves, ash, something sweet. You light juniper to push it out. When the first cut is made, it always feels like betrayal. You tell yourself the body is just that, a vessel. But when the knife touches skin, the air changes. Time thickens. This new man's skin is like parchment, thin, sun-creased, familiar. The organs must be removed. You reach into the cavity, fingers trembling, and lift the liver, then the stomach, then the lungs. One by one, they are cleaned and packed with resin-soaked linen, then placed into canopic jars. Each jar bears a guardian head: jackal, falcon, baboon, human. You nod to them, as if to say, "Watch these. I've done my part." There's a rumor in town that one embalmer went mad, tried to mummify himself while still alive, said he wanted to meet Osiris as a gift, not a guest. You don't believe it. But sometimes, when you're cleaning the ribs of a stranger while flies buzz in the heat and the walls sweat natron, you understand the thought. To be preserved, to not rot, to escape the burning. It's not madness, it's longing. You pack the cavity with sawdust and resin, wrap the wound with new linen, and whisper again. Not for the dead, not for the gods, for yourself. Because if you don't speak, the silence becomes too loud. And in that silence, something watches. You've never seen it, but it's there. In the corner. In the crackling lamp. In the breath you hold when the mask is lowered.
You place the sealed heart jar among the others. The lungs go to Hapi, the liver to Imseti, the stomach to Duamitef, the intestines to Sinew. Each organ has a guardian, a purpose, a fate. The heart, though, it's complicated. Some say it must be left in, others say removed and weighed. Your master once said, "Let the priests debate. We just keep the body from stinking." You smirk at that, even now, years later. His laugh still rings in your ears, even though you're now the one with apprentices looking to you for answers. And still, there are none. Only hands, soaked in oil and memory. You move next to the mouth. The opening of the mouth ceremony is meant for priests, for final rituals with sacred tools. But in your small room, it's just you. You use a reed spatula carved with lotus petals. You gently part the lips and touch each corner, north, south, east, west. Then the nostrils, then the ears. You whisper, "So you may speak in the west. So you may hear the call of the field of reeds." The voice must not be lost, not in this life, not in what comes next. A fresh linen shroud is unrolled beside you. It smells of temple incense and sun. You begin wrapping the final layers, precise folds over the arms, chest, and hips. With each wrap, you brush a layer of resin and dust the folds with powdered myrrh, not just for preservation, for remembrance. The scent will linger. The family will breathe it during the funeral. And someday, maybe, long after they too are gone, someone might open this tomb and still smell the sweetness of the dead.
You reach for the amulets. There is a small scarab chipped at the edge. You wrap it in linen and tuck it between the ribs. A wedgeot eye is placed over the forehead, Ankh at the throat. The Dajjed pillar, a symbol of stability, between the shoulder blades. One by one, they vanish beneath the linen folds. One by one, the body becomes sacred. Not because of the gold, or the prayers, or the name, but because you touched it. You saw it, and you honored it. That's all the gods ever ask. You wipe your hands clean and light more incense, frankincense this time. It rises in slow, spiraling ribbons, catching the lamp's glow like ghosts made of air. The body is finished. You step back and bow your head, not because it's required, but because something inside you still believes this matters, still believes that care is stronger than death, that silence is not the end, and that those who prepare the dead are never forgotten. You return to the corner where your tools rest, each one stained, worn, sacred. You lay them out on a reed mat and scrub each with salt water, then wine, then natron. You hum as you work, a soft, broken song your mother sang to you when you were small. The tune has no name, but you've taught it to your apprentices, and they will hum it too, as they clean your tools one day. There's a crack in the ceiling above the embalming table. It's small, easy to miss, but through it the sun slips in each morning and draws a thin golden line across the chest of every body, like a blessing or a warning. You've never fixed it. You never will. Some things are meant to break the dark. You glance once more at the wrapped body. It is still. It is ready. You pull the linen curtain shut and let the incense burn out. And outside, in the warm wind, a little boy waits to take his grandfather home. He will cry, then forget, then remember again when his own hands become stained with salt and ash. So the cycle turns, one body at a time.
Later, under a canopy of stars, you stand again at the tomb's sealed entrance. The sand is still marked with the passage of many feet, workers, priests, mourners, but the wind is smoothing it out, as it always does. What was once noise becomes silence. What was once seen becomes forgotten. You light a small lamp and place it at the base of the wall. Just one flicker, just enough for a soul to see by. The flame dances against the smooth limestone. Its shadows stretch like the memories in your mind, faint and shifting, yet never truly gone. You whisper to the stone, "May she pass safely. May she rise with Ra." No one hears you, but in this land words have weight, especially when they're spoken in the hush of night, with the scent of natron still clinging to your robes. Behind you, the embalmers have begun another body, another journey, another soul preparing to leave the world with linen, salt, and scent as their final companions. But you are still here. You are not buried yet. Back at your shelter, you remove your work garments for the first time in days. The sleeves crackle with dried oil and resin. You hang them beside the door. The stars outside glimmer faintly through a slit in the wall. You sit cross-legged on the reed mat and open your hands. There is nothing in them now. No scarab, no coin, no thread of linen. Just warmth. Just breath. The quiet is not empty. It is full. Of smoke, of chance, of lives you've touched, and those who will never know your name. That is the gift, perhaps. The curse, too. To be the one who prepares others for forever, while your own name fades like soot in water. Your final thoughts drift to her, the noble woman with the painted eyes and sealed mouth. She will awaken to gold, but you will awaken to mourning, to sweat, to salt, to more bodies, and you will return, because someone must. Someone must remember the words even when no one listens. Someone must hold the line between life and ritual, between blood and blessing. As sleep claims you, you hear nothing, but you feel the faintest brush of linen on your arm, a scent, lotus, myrrh, and something like memory lingers in the air. You do not open your eyes. You do not need to. You are home, not in a tomb, but in the silence between, where gods walk softly, and the forgotten still dream.
You are summoned at dawn, but this is not the usual call. It does not come from the priests, not from the embalming quarter. This time, the voice comes from the west. You rise in your linen wrap, wrap your belt twice, and cover your shoulders with the cleanest cloak you own. It smells of cedar oil and faint salt. You touch your brow to the shrine of Anubis before stepping into the golden light. Today, you will tend to a noble, a man who lived in luxury, a man who died in silk. The tomb lies far beyond the city walls, carved into the cliffs above the Nile. The stone path winds like a serpent. You walk it slowly, step by careful step, for the basket you carry is filled with sacred goods, resin jars, folded linen, incense cones, and the golden mask wrapped in soft white cotton. Behind you, 4 servants follow. One holds a lyre, another bears dates and lotus wine. They hum an old hymn under their breath as the desert wind rises around your ankles. Even the air feels ceremonial. When you reach the tomb entrance, a hush falls. 2 guards part the veil of linen that covers the door. The tomb is not dark, it glows. Oil lamps rest in lotus-shaped holders. Gold leaf shimmers along the carved walls. Painted figures march in profile, gods, beasts, and men of honor. It smells like cinnamon, myrrh, and expensive ink. A life written in pigment, a death gilded in memory. The noble lies at the center, already dried, his skin darkened by natron and time. His eyes are sealed with wax. His hands rest upon his chest, wrapped in soft linen embroidered with protective spells. You've worked on dozens of bodies, but never like this. Here, every detail has been planned. Every ritual has a sponsor. Every thread is counted. Even the amulet at his throat, a tiny scarab carved from lapis lazuli, is worth more than a farmer's field. You bow low, not to the man, but to the meaning. A priest enters, chanting softly. He anoints your forehead with sacred oil, and you begin your work in silence. First the linen, fine, thin, white as desert bone. You wrap his limbs slowly, each finger, each toe, each joint, with a whispered name of protection. May your legs carry you beyond the western desert. May your arms embrace the gods.
May your fingers find the keys of heaven. The priest circles the chamber, trailing incense. Ash floats like feathers in the lamplight. The noble's wife watches from the alcove. She says nothing, but her tears are lined with kohl, and her perfume is thick with jasmine. You see the servants beside her, one fanning her, another holding a tray of wine-soaked dates. Grief here is dignified. It wears gold and speaks little. But you notice the tension in her jaw when your hands press against his heart space. Even the rich must watch love turn to dust. As the ritual continues, the tomb transforms. Chant becomes echo. Smoke becomes cloud. And you, poor, sleep-starved, once apprenticed under a man with bad breath and cracked hands, are now the vessel of immortality. Your every movement is sacred. Every linen fold is a spell. Every silence is part of the hymn. You begin to understand why the rich chase death so expensively, to make it beautiful. You complete the first shroud. Another servant steps forward with thin sheets of gold. You apply them like a final skin over the chest, the arms, the face. The golden mask is placed last. It gleams in the firelight, catching your reflection. For a moment, it's as if the dead man is alive again, watching you, thanking you, or judging you. You can never quite tell.
The second veil is red, dyed with pomegranate and stitched with sacred symbols, eyes, ankhs, spirals, and the open palm of Ta. You drape it gently over the body, letting it settle like a hush across the face. Around the tomb, more attendants arrive. Some carry alabaster jars sealed with wax and inscribed with protective blessings. Others bring miniature figurines, ushabti, meant to serve the noble in the afterlife. Each one carved from faience, each with a tiny hoe or grain basket in its hands. They line them up in rows, facing the west wall. They look like they're waiting to work. Even in death, no one rests for free. You light another oil lamp. The flame flickers. Shadows dance along the painted ceiling, stars arranged in a grid, constellations twisted through ancient sky maps. The noble's journey is now cosmological. Below, on the tomb floor, the priest draws a chalk line around the body, a final boundary between this world and the next. Let no serpent cross this ring. Let no shadow pass without a name. You hand him the chalice of milk and honey. He drinks, then spits 3 drops into the air. The chant changes. No longer soft or mournful. Now it's rhythmic, structured like breath. You've heard it called the opening of the mouth, a ritual said to return the senses to the dead: sight, speech, hunger, love. The priest touches a copper blade to the mask's lips. Speak your name again. Taste your offerings. Remember the garden you left behind. You hold your breath. The tomb seems to hum. For one strange moment, the gold appears to breathe. The noble's heart is returned to his chest, a small stone replica carved with prayers wrapped in green linen. No real heart lies beneath, it was removed long ago, but symbol matters more than substance here. Truth in Egypt is not always visible, it's recited, painted, performed. You seal the chest with resin. The scent is sharp, pine and smoke, and it clings to your skin even as you wipe your hands clean. You wonder if the soul can smell itself returning home. Beside you, another servant begins laying out the burial feast. Braided bread, roasted quail, bowls of lentils and figs, wine in painted jars.
a sealed packet of salt from the Red Sea. The offerings are not just symbolic. The dead eat. They hunger in dreams. They sip from the same Nile as the living, only deeper. You place a single grape into the noble's folded hands. Not required, but maybe kind. You imagine he liked grapes. Now comes the final box. Not the sarcophagus. This is smaller, carved from ebony, inlaid with ivory and silver. Inside, letters, tokens, and things that have no name. A comb, a ring, a scrap of linen with a child's name. These are the pieces that matter most, the ones not recorded by scribes or catalogued by priests. You add your own note, just a folded reed paper square. No one will read it, but perhaps he will. The room dims. The priest chants the final spell. His voice, once proud, now trembles. He is old. His knees ache. His incense burns low. The guards begin to reseal the chamber, stone against stone, mortar brushed like chalk. You step back into the corridor, eyes still adjusting. It's brighter now. The sun must be high. The Nile sparkles in the distance, far below the cliffs. A falcon cries in the sky. And you remember, this man is not alone. There are hundreds like him, gold-wrapped, word-bound, laid beneath layers of silence. But somehow this one felt different. Maybe it was the wife, maybe the mask, maybe the grape in his hand. You touch your chest where the priest's oil still lingers and whisper a quiet goodbye. Walk well, noble one, and don't forget the taste of bread.
At the edge of the tomb, you rest for a moment, not to pray, but to stretch your back. The work of death is heavy, not just the lifting of bodies or the weight of stone, but the silent burden of knowing so much about someone you never met. His favorite perfume, the amulet his mother gave him, the words he whispered before battle. You know these things now, and he doesn't. That makes you the guardian of his memory, even more than the sarcophagus or the mask. You rise. It's not yet done. The artisans arrive, not priests, not mourners. These are the ones with stained hands and calloused fingers. They carry chisels, paint pots, and ladders. Their job, to seal the tomb, not just in stone, but in story. They start with the west wall, always the west, where the sun dies each day. They begin painting the noble's journey. Across the Nile in a reed boat, says one, brushing blue onto plaster. Guided by Anubis, says another, dotting black along a jackal's snout. And beneath him, the crocodile waits, adds a third, smiling grimly. The mural is a warning and a wish, all at once. You pass through the antechambers, each one filled with goods. Not just treasure, but tools, bronze knives, alabaster bowls, games carved in wood and ivory. There's a mirror polished so finely you catch your own reflection, dusty, tired, smudged with ochre. In another room, shelves of scrolls, their ends sealed with beeswax. They contain spells, maps, dreams, things no one alive will read again. Some are already cracking with age. You wonder, does papyrus rot in the afterlife? In a corner of the chamber sits a statue. It's him, the noble, carved in basalt, sitting straight, arms on knees. You crouch before it. The face is not exact. Stone is rarely exact. But the gaze is familiar. He watches you, not with judgment, but expectation, as if he wants to know how the world has changed since he left. You whisper to him, not in ritual, just in truth. The Nile still floods. The dates are sweet this year. Someone is waiting for you. You swear the statue smiles. Outside the tomb, the sun blazes. It's nearly noon. The sand is hot enough to burn through sandals. The workers wipe their foreheads with cloths soaked in vinegar and mint. You do the same. Behind you, the tomb door closes. A great slab of stone lowers into place with groaning finality. One worker spits on the seal for luck. Another mutters a prayer of protection, not for the dead, but for themselves. Too many spirits, too many names. Better to be forgotten than cursed. You help carry the final offering to the entrance. A stone basin filled with milk, honey, and lotus petals. For the gods, for the insects, for balance. The priest pours it slowly into the earth. The smell rises, sweet, thick, alive. A feast for ghosts. You step back as sand is shoveled over it. The tomb is now invisible, just a hump in the rock. You mark it in your memory. You will return here someday, not as a worker, but as a friend. Evening begins to bloom. The shadows stretch across the cliffs. The Nile glows gold. And far across the water, you see another funeral bark drifting silently toward the horizon. Another noble, another story, another weight to carry. You close your eyes and let the chant echo in your bones. He is known. He is wrapped. He is sung into eternity. And now, you are dismissed, but not released. The scent of resin follows you down the path. The wind stirs the linen at your waist. You feel light, and somehow heavier, as if part of you remains sealed behind the stone, watching, waiting, preserved. That's how they trap you, not with curses, but with memory, with beauty, with care. And when you finally reach the river and wash your hands, the water turns slightly red, just a hint of ochre, just enough to remember.
You sleep beside the river that night, wrapped in your own linen shroud, not for death, but for peace. The breeze off the Nile is warm and damp, scented with fish, algae, and distant blooms. You curl against the roots of a tamarisk tree and watch the stars rise, like pins hammered into the black velvet sky. The tomb is behind you now, but not far. It never really is. At dawn, you rise again. Today, you assist with the preparation of funerary goods for another burial, this time for the wife of a nobleman. A seamstress in the afterlife, they say. Her chamber will be filled with bolts of dyed linen, needles of bronze, and a single unfinished dress she never wore in life. You sort spools of thread, crimson, ochre, indigo, some dyed with crushed beetle shells, others soaked in safflower oil and lotus tincture. Each color carries a wish, each fabric a memory. In a side room, another worker polishes perfume cones. They sit like little white caps, hardened with beeswax and scented with myrrh, cedar, and frankincense. These are not just gifts, they are identity. Her scent will be the first thing she wears in the afterlife. You pick one up and breathe deeply. Your nose tingles with spice and softness. The scent reminds you of a marketplace, of laughter, of heat. Another gift, a wooden game board. Senate. You help arrange the small tokens, painted black and white, each shaped like a tiny soul. The game is meant to be played with the gods. It's not about winning. It's about being remembered. The rules are unclear. No one alive knows them fully. But that doesn't matter. The soul plays instinctively, they say, guided by the wind. By midday, the tomb is ready. She will be placed beside her husband, but not in his chamber. No. Each spirit needs its own doorway to eternity. You help carry the burial couch, a carved wood frame shaped like a lioness, paws curled under, teeth bared. The legs creak slightly as you lift it, centuries old already. The body is wrapped. You don't look at her face. You never do. You're not supposed to. As you step into the tomb, a small boy offers you a torch. He doesn't speak. He just looks at you with wide eyes ringed in coal. You take it, nod, and begin the descent. Stone steps, chalk dust, heat. The priest begins the recitation behind you. She is a daughter of the West. Her name shall not be forgotten. The flame dances along the painted walls, birds, reeds, gods with jackal heads. The air smells of salt, ash, and dried flowers. At the burial chamber, you wait. You hold the torch higher as the priest places one hand on the linen-wrapped brow of the body. May your breath rise like incense. May your heart weigh light against the feather. May your name echo forever. Then silence. You don't know her name, but you feel it now, hovering in the space between words, between flickers of the torch. It lands in your chest like a soft drumbeat. Badum, badum, a pulse of memory. You leave the tomb last. You place the torch into the wall bracket. You trace your fingers across the painted ceiling, stars on blue plaster, like the real sky, only closer, only yours. When you emerge into sunlight again, the world feels louder, brighter, faster, but you move slower. Because you carry her now, and because death, once seen that closely, becomes a kind of mirror.
The procession begins not with trumpets, but with silence. You and the others stand barefoot on hot stone, back straight, eyes lowered. The nobles arrive in linen finer than yours, their heads perfumed, their arms heavy with gold rings and amulets, but no one speaks. The air demands reverence. A slow drumbeat starts in the distance. One breath every 4 heartbeats. Thud, thud, thud. The first priest begins the chant, not loud, not theatrical, just a low murmur that sounds like the Nile itself speaking through him. You lift the coffin with 3 others. It is heavy, not because of the body, but because of what she now carries. Inside are scrolls, charms, memories sealed in oils. She bears her own library, her own kitchen, her own garden, all carved in miniature, painted with care, wrapped in layers of belief. As you walk, you feel sweat drip down your back, not from the heat, but from the weight of her afterlife. The column of mourners winds through narrow streets, past children and market stalls that briefly fall silent. Vendors bow their heads. Fishermen kneel. Even dogs seem to hush their barking. Death here is not feared. It is honored. The procession moves toward the necropolis, toward the desert that swallows noise and gives back only echoes. By the time you reach the tomb entrance, the linen at your neck is soaked. The sand crunches beneath your feet. You help lower the coffin inside. This time, there is no need for oil or salt. Those were used days ago. Now, only blessings. The priest sprinkles natron across the threshold, chanting names of gods and secret stars. You stand with your hands behind your back, still, watching, learning. The nobles kneel. Each one presses a gift to the ground, a ring, a carved box, a small carved cat. They whisper something you can't hear, something they don't want you to hear. Final truths, maybe. Unspoken guilt. Unfinished business. Then, all at once, they rise and leave. Their sandals crunch over stone. You remain behind, because your job is not finished. You step closer. You straighten the coffin's alignment. You smooth the linen drape one last time. You light one final oil lamp and place it on the shelf above her. It flickers uncertainly, then steadies. The flame won't last the night, but it doesn't need to. She is already on her way. As you seal the entrance with plaster and bricks, the final rite begins. The priest whispers, "The door is shut, but never lost. The name is spoken, and so it lives." He presses his hand to the wall. So do you. And in that moment, you feel something quiet pass between you and the stone. Something that says, you have done your part. You have helped someone begin again. You walk home in the dark, alone. Hands dusted with plaster, heart strangely light. Not from joy, not from pride, but from knowing that today you helped build something that might outlast empires. A name in the sand that the wind has not yet taken.
The path back is long, quiet, and filled with ghosts. Not spirits with glowing eyes or haunting voices, no. The ghosts that follow you are footprints, fading chants, and the weight of a name you never spoke aloud. Your sandals leave patterns in the sand. You watch them dissolve behind you with each step. This is how memory works, you think. Soft, fickle, never meant to last unless etched in stone. When you reach the edge of the settlement, the sky is deepening to copper. Children play near fire pits. The scent of stew, lentils, and garlic hangs in the air like incense of a living. You walk past them without speaking. The tomb is sealed, but you are not. You still carry its silence in your lungs, and the oils in your pores, and the smell of linen in your hair. At the small shrine outside your hut, you kneel. It's made of clay, simple, cracked in one corner, but the offering bowl is full. Fresh water, a sprig of papyrus, a flat stone inked with the eye of Horus. You light a single reed wick, not for her, not for the priest, for yourself. You whisper, "May the doors open for me too, one day." And in that hush, the flame dances, as if listening. Your home is modest. Woven mats, a sleeping cot, a bundle of herbs drying above the doorway. But in the corner, wrapped in old linen, is a gift, one you were not meant to keep. A tiny scarab, carved from lapis lazuli. You found it tucked inside a linen fold while sealing the tomb. The others didn't see. You don't know why you took it, only that it felt like it saw you. You unwrap it now. It glows faintly in the lamplight, smooth and cool in your hand. You don't pray. You don't ask forgiveness. You just hold it there between two fingers and think of her.
The noblewoman, her gold mask, her name, her silence. You wonder, will she miss it? Or was it meant for you? You fall asleep that night without dreams. The scarab rests beneath your pillow. The priest's chant echoes in the cracks of your mind. The name is spoken, and so it lives. And maybe tomorrow, when you wake, the world will look the same, but you won't. You were part of something ancient, and part of you now belongs to the dead. Outside, the wind picks up. It brushes across sand and stone, through tomb and courtyard, over the Nile and all its secrets. And far beneath the earth, a flame flickers once, then goes out. But you feel it still. A warmth behind your ribs. A memory you didn't earn, but now carry, like a scarab, like a name.
The next morning arrives with no fanfare, just the soft cooing of doves and the scent of fresh bread baking nearby. Your body aches from the day's labors before, but something inside you feels settled, as if you've returned from a place no one else can see. You rinse your face with cool water from a clay basin. The scarab remains under your pillow. You don't touch it. Not yet. The priest does not call for you today. The tomb is sealed. The job is done. But you cannot sit idle, not after what you've seen. You return to the embalmer's hut, uninvited. He's there, hunched over a fire pit, stirring resin with a carved stick. He doesn't look up as you approach. You didn't chant the full rites, you say quietly. He still doesn't turn. She was meant to cross with more than fire. The embalmer snorts softly. She'll find her way. You don't argue. There's no point. Instead, you crouch near the fire and watch the resin bubble. The smoke is thick, sweet and acrid, like sorrow that's been dried and burned for years. He finally speaks. You touch the linen. It's not a question. You nod. Then she touched you back. He tosses a sliver of cedar into the flames. For the rich, the journey is lit by gold, he murmurs. For the rest of us, it's lit by guilt. You don't respond. Instead, you hand him something, a single lotus petal, dried and pressed flat. He takes it, doesn't smile, doesn't frown, just adds it to the fire. And for a moment, the smoke turned purple. You leave without a word. The village is already moving with morning rhythm, market baskets bouncing on hips, children dragging reeds, men arguing over fish scales and weights. Life, as it always is. But you walk toward the hills, not toward another tomb, but toward a high ledge where wind carves the cliff face. It's quiet here, sacred in its own way. You sit, you breathe, you take the scarab from your pocket and set it gently on a rock. Below, the Nile shimmers like a vein in the skin of the world. Boats drift, palms sway, distant voices rise and fall like a chant. You press your palm over the scarab, eyes closed, and you whisper, not a prayer, but a promise. You will not be forgotten. You don't know if you're speaking to her or to yourself. Maybe both. Because in this place, names matter. Even yours. You stay on the cliff until the shadows stretch long and the heat fades. The scarab remains behind, not buried, not stolen, offered. Like the breath of a reed flute in an empty hall. You walk back with no fear in your step. The embalmer watches from his doorway. He doesn't ask where you went. He only nods. That night you sleep deeply. No sounds, no dreams. Only the faint impression of linen like a gentle weight across your chest, and the smell of resin in the air. As if the gods, or perhaps just memory,
are still nearby, watching, waiting, keeping the door ajar.
Later, under a canopy of stars, you stand again at the tomb's sealed entrance. The sand is still marked with the passage of many feet, workers, priests, mourners, but the wind is smoothing it out, as it always does. What was once noise becomes silence. What was once seen becomes forgotten. You light a small lamp and place it at the base of the wall. Just one flicker, just enough for a soul to see by. The flame dances against the smooth limestone. Its shadows stretch like the memories in your mind, faint and shifting, yet never truly gone. You whisper to the stone, "May she pass safely. May she rise with Ra." No one hears you, but in this land, words have weight, especially when they're spoken in the hush of night, with the scent of natron still clinging to your robes. Behind you, the embalmers have begun another body, another journey, another soul preparing to leave the world with linen, salt, and scent as their final companions. But you? You are still here. You are not buried. Yet. Back at your shelter, you remove your work garments for the first time in days. The sleeves crackle with dried oil and resin. You hang them beside the door. The stars outside glimmer faintly through a slit in the wall. You sit cross-legged on the reed mat and open your hands. There is nothing in them now. No scarab, no coin, no thread of linen. Just warmth. Just breath. The quiet is not empty. It is full. Of smoke, of chance, of lives you've touched and those who will never know your name. That is the gift, perhaps. The curse, too. To be the one who prepares others for forever, while your own name fades like soot in water. Your final thoughts drift to her, the noble woman with the painted eyes and sealed mouth. She will awaken to gold, but you will awaken to mourning, to sweat, to salt, to more bodies. And you will return, because someone must. Someone must remember the words even when no one listens. Someone must hold the line between life and ritual, between blood and blessing. As sleep claims you, you hear nothing, but you feel the faintest brush of linen on your arm, a scent, lotus, myrrh, and something like memory lingers in the air. You do not open your eyes. You do not need to. You are home, not in a tomb, but in the silence between, where gods walk softly and the forgotten still dream.
And now the tomb is sealed. The torches are out. The chants have ended. The sand has settled. And your hands, once red with resin and salt, are still. You have journeyed through a world of linen and silence, of sacred oils and sacred lies, of gold leaf and grief disguised as ritual. But in truth, the dead were not the only ones transformed. You were too. Because even here in this ancient world, where jackals watched from the dunes and incense curled in the chambers of kings, life was lived moment by moment, breath by breath, much like your own. The echoes of Egypt are not so far away. They breathe in museum halls and dusty scrolls, in perfumes that linger, in rituals we keep without knowing why. And perhaps, deep inside, you recognize something familiar, the fear of being forgotten, the desire to leave something behind, the aching wish to be remembered with kindness. You are not alone in that. Neither were they.
So tonight, as you drift into your own desert of dreams, carry with you the weight of centuries, not as a burden, but as a comfort. Let the stars above you shimmer like the golden inlays on a pharaoh's mask. Let your thoughts wrap around you like linen strips, soft and slow. And if you find yourself wandering in sleep, perhaps you'll meet a name carved in stone, or a whisper from a soul that passed long ago. Offer them peace, and keep walking. You've walked among kings and laborers, priests and thieves, mothers and children. You've touched the cloth of eternity. And now, with centuries behind you and starlight above, you may finally let go. Rest well, traveler. The world will keep turning.